Mrs. Albert? Here. Mr. Hauser?
Here.
Mrs. Kozar? Here. Mrs. Baines? Here. Mr. Moeller?
Here.
Mr. Music? Mr. Palmer?
Here.
Dr. Sorge?
Here.
Dr. Blackman? Here.
Education and planning, Mrs. Baines.
Thank you very much. And we're going to begin with the student report. Connor and Courtney, for your last speaker.
Before I start, I just wanted to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to sit in the meetings throughout the year. It's definitely something that I never thought about school board meetings, but it was definitely a really cool experience, and I just wanted to say thank you. And I also wanted to apologize for any of the times that I was absent. I do play lacrosse and I'm a cheerleader, so I had a lot of stuff on my plate, so this was definitely on my mind. This last month, on April 27th, the Student Council hosted their annual Senior Citizen Luncheon, and around 300 senior citizens within our district attended. The council members served as seniors and intermingled with them throughout the afternoon, and I myself really took this to heart. I got a comment from one of the senior citizens that said he was so happy to see people from our generation interacting with people from his generation. And to me, that made me think that it was all worthwhile. Also, last Thursday, Mrs. Hout, her mother, Mrs. I Wanted students of York, and the SAD Club put together a wonderful event. The students were welcome to visit different tables and activities in the Commons area, and these activities included things such as a sober selfie, drunk driving simulator, and they were able to talk to members of the drug task force. And the purpose of this event was to promote positive decision making right before prom and graduation season. And I thought it went wonderfully. It was a different take than Mrs. Hauck usually does. She usually gives a presentation herself and talks about like the hardships of drunk driving, but this was a way for the students to actually get connected and actually participate in things, and I think it went really well.
I'm going to talk about the prom. The prom was held last Friday, May 8th at the Nemacolin Woodlands Resort in Farmington. The theme was It's Jungle Out There. The class officers worked really hard to get the location changed from the Ramada. The general consensus of the students was that they loved the change in venue, except there's a little far of a drive, but I think it made up for it with the prom being held at the #1 resort in Pennsylvania. Walking into the ballroom, it felt like a jungle. Nemacolin's themeworks department did an excellent job of decorating the whole entire room. When students got there, they were greeted by a leopard in the lobby of the hotel, which, I mean, that's pretty amazing. And then also there was a fire dancer performance that lasted about 15 to 20 minutes. And then finally, the dinner from the 5-star restaurant just topped off the night and made it memorable and safe. I even saw Mr. Lacasio on the dance floor, so it had to have been pretty good.
Walking across it.
And as Courtney said, I'd like to thank you guys for just giving me the opportunity to be a school board member this year. So thank you.
Just saying, we would also like to thank both of you for a wonderful job throughout the year. It seems like these years go more quickly than ever, but we have a little gift for you, Connor, and thank you so much for all your hard work. It's good service to us, Courtney. Thank you. Good luck to both of you. Tell us a little bit about what you're going to do.
I'm going to go to Ohio University majoring in meteorology. So.
Okay. I'm going to the University of Pittsburgh, and I'm going to study biology with hopes to enter the medical field.
Well, thank you so much. Let's get you. Representatives also.
Okay, on behalf of me, Connor, we'd like to introduce our new school board members for the 2015-2016 school year, Hannah Mears and Charlie Robbins.
Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Hannah Mears. I'm currently a junior at Greater Latrobe High School. I'm involved in National Honor Society, Spanish National Honor Society. I'm the communications director for the Fellowship of Christian Athletes Club. I'm a member of Letterman's Club and been on student council for 3 years. I'm also a captain of the soccer team. I play basketball and I'm captain of the track team. In my free time, I lifeguard at Wilmerton Pool and rep soccer for Parks and Rec. It's a little bit about me.
Hi, my name is Charlie Robbins. Obviously, it's very hard to follow that up. I'm a member of the Remembering Adam. That's about the only club I do. But outside of school, I really like to golf and enjoy skiing. And I work at Totteridge Golf Course, so come see me out there sometime. Thank you. I'm very excited to be coming to these meetings next year. Thank you.
Well, we're excited to have both of you. Thank you. Once again, good luck to Connor and Courtney and all their endeavors also. Okay, the enrollment report, Mr. Brent, any notices tonight?
I would just note that our kindergarten registration at this point, our enrollment for next year is up to 218. Looking forward to getting closer to 250.
We have with us this evening Mr. Eric Bolden, who's the CEO and principal of the Dr. Robert Ketterer Charter School, and we'd like to welcome you.
Thank you very much. I also have Brooke here. She's our assistant principal and also supervisor of curriculum and instruction. We're here tonight to request a renewal of our charter with the Greater Latrobe School District to be effective for a 5-year term beginning July 1st, 2015 and expiring June 30th, 2020. We want to provide the board with some history, services that we provide, a little bit about our student population and academic achievement. Ketterer Charter School was established with the Greater Latrobe School District in 1998 and renewals in 2001, 2006, and in 2010. The charter school is a subsidiary company of Adelphi. Our charter school is unique. We're probably the only ones with a kind of student population in which we serve. We're not in competition with our local school districts. Instead, we provide a service to our local school districts. Our niche is dealing with students who have had or having social, emotional, and behavioral difficulties. Our student population comes from over 100 school districts in Pennsylvania, along with students from other states. We have several different types of programs. We have secure, residential, alternative education, emotional support, and day treatment. 8% of our student population is in secure units. These are students who have been court-ordered into Adelphi Village. They're in grades 7 through 12. They're adjudicated and they're in secure units because they've committed serious or chronic offenses. They're typically aggressive, runaway risk, or have other serious delinquent behaviors. 65% of our student population are in residential facilities, and they are court-ordered, adjudicated youth, and they are court-ordered into one of 11 Adelphi residential treatment facilities. We also provide education for day treatment. These are adjudicated youth from our local school districts who are in need of a treatment component. So overall, 79% of our student population are kids who are in Adelphi treatment programs. When we look at our local population, so only 27% of our student population are from our local school districts. And they attend either day treatment or our emotional support program. And again, we're looking at, these are for non-adjudicated youth who are in need of a therapeutic component for behavioral health issues. Or our alternative ed program. Our alternative ed program is non-adjudicated youth in grades 6 through 12 from our local school districts. Right now, we're dealing with 9 local school districts. On any given day, we have approximately 220 students enrolled, but annually we supply educational services to more than 440, so our students are very transient. If we were to look at our student population, only 14% of our student population are there for one full 180-day academic year. Only 3% are there for 2 full 180-day academic years. So we do have a challenge in front of us because of the transiency of our student population. We look at our student population, 54% of them are special needs students, 90% are considered economically disadvantaged. With all of these challenges, our attendance rate is still at 90%. So we're providing a safe environment where kids are coming, they're excited about school. Typically, they don't have a lot of success in school settings, and they're achieving some success while they're with us. And I'll let Mrs. Pierce talk about some of our other accomplishments.
Just thought I'd give you just a brief overview on where we're at with curriculum. We've worked really hard the past 5 years to ensure that our curriculum is fully aligned with the PA core and the PA standards and eligible content. So the kids have a rigorous curriculum that they're getting while they're at school and helping so that when they go back to their public schools and when they go back home, they're where they need to be. We have a 9-period schedule throughout the day. We've worked to increase to a 9-period schedule because our kids are typically behind in credits and in their skills. So we want to make sure that they have all the opportunity that we can. We're a Title I school, and because our kids typically come in low achieving and they have a lot of gaps in their education, we ensure that all of our kids every day have 2 periods of math and 2 periods of English. So that was something that we've done in the past couple of years. Differentiation for us is huge, and ensuring that teachers know where those students are and the needs of those students, and being able to fill those gaps with their education. We have employability or soft skills. That's something that we've worked pretty hard on. A lot of our kids residentially, that was a big need. So getting them those employability and soft skills. So all of those kids leave us with portfolios, employability portfolios. So we're trying to help them be productive citizens. We have a career readiness program after school for our residential youth. So they're able to go to school all day, and then after school, they're able to participate in a VOTEC career readiness program to help give them the skills necessary to be productive. We also, a little bit about our achievement. Our kids definitely come in low achieving. Many of our kids have been out of school many years. They've run away. They've had catastrophic things happen in their past. So a lot of them have big gaps in their education. We have kids that are total non-readers, kids who just like school for most of their school careers. So the majority of our kids have not been successful in school. So when they come to us, they are low achieving. However, when they're with us, if you look at some of our data, they are showing growth. And so we're able to take those kids who haven't been successful in school and haven't been achieving in school, and we're able to grow them. Our PWAS scores are all in the green and light blue. So even though they're coming in low achieving, while they're with us, we're able to show growth. Also, a little bit about our data for kids who we are able to keep. When we look at kids that took the PSSAs and Keystones, 40 to 45% of our kids jumped performance levels. So they went from basic to proficient or below basic to basic. And 80 to 85% showed improvement. So we really think that's great. So when they're with us, they are growing and showing improvement. Just a final word about something else that we started at the charter school. We have something called the Adelphi Promise. It was modeled after the Pittsburgh Promise, if anyone's familiar with that. A few years ago, we realized that a big need for us and for our kids are, they're really great when they're with us, and then we say good luck, see you later, and that's it. So a lot of them don't have the thought that they can go to school and that they can have that support system and do good things after high school. So about 2 years ago, we started to raise money. We have a private foundation where we raise money to support the Adelphi Promise. And that says if you're with us and you do well. So if they're with us and they do well academically, socially, behaviorally, and then go wherever and get a high school diploma, that we will cover 2 years tuition-free community college for those kids. And it is last chance dollars. So a lot of our kids do qualify for aid, but those that don't, we're able to provide them with support with books, we'll provide a laptop, and the big piece of it is guidance. So helping them to navigate the system of community college and working through this. So we're currently at 6 community colleges across the state, and we're slowly expanding. So the goal would be eventually, to be at more. But it's an opportunity, and we've had several kids. Just this last week, WCCC held its graduation, and we had a young man who was in our secure facility, at one point, and he stepped down to residential, and then he went to an independent living program, and he was able to successfully graduate from WCCC with a welding degree. So, we're really proud of that, opportunity. So, just a few things.
To add on with what Brooke was talking about, the promise, it really gives our kids to see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's something they can achieve. If they do what they need to do, whether it's treatment-wise or academically, there is an opportunity for them. And it doesn't mean that they have to be with us and they're in 12th grade and they graduate. If they're with us and acquiring credits towards graduation. So, for example, if they were in 9th grade at the charter school and also in a Delphi treatment facility, and they were successful, and they returned to their home school district, and they graduated, they're still eligible for the promise. So many of our kids, the opportunity is just so immense, and the support that these kids are even getting, it's really helped us to spark. We don't have a whole lot of parent involvement with our residential kids. But this program's really helped parents to get involved, because the parents also see there's an opportunity for their kids. We had one situation where we had a student from Philadelphia. He was successfully released from Adelphi Village, was interested in the promise. His father said, "You have an opportunity that I couldn't give you." So they worked out some accommodations that they were able to get him an apartment in the Greensburg area so that he could take advantage of the promise for 2 years instead of returning home. And really, who knows what may have occurred when he returned back home, if he would have fallen back into that environment again. So the promise has really been a huge success. If anybody has any questions, we can certainly.
I really have to congratulate you on your academic achievement. Those are really impressive growth numbers, I think, for your P1 scores.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very good. And the Delphi promise is awesome. That's a great
Giving whole, the training you had in there, the words, and kids and all, so.
Well, it's opening the work.
Yes, it is.
I mean, there's no, it's not just the end now, it's just not the end game. And that's huge. And I'm really happy that it's not contingent upon them completing the program at the charter school. Because Pittsburgh Promise is.
Right.
And that's been a real bone of contention there. Because they have low disadvantaged economic need students there who do get pulled out and pulled back into Pittsburgh Public, and then they're screwed. They can't take advantage. So that's a real plus with this program, that there's that opportunity no matter what.
And I think, again, that's the uniqueness of our charter school.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So next week on the agenda, the item will be to renew the charter for the next 5 years, starting I think July 1.
July 1. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
educational program.
I would like to turn it over to Mr. Pasio, principal of Senior High School. I know he has some presenters this evening.
Good evening. Over the course of this past year, you've had the opportunity to listen to presentations from every building. And as we do that, each building has been giving you a lot of data, a lot of information. We kill you with kindness and numbers, and we put up a lot of slides, a lot of information that's very important. And you hear us talk about SPP scores and PSSA and Keystone, and those are all important. And they're all barometers that are used to let you, the Board of Education, know what's being done in your schools. I'm going to change that a little tonight. Now, you know how much I love to talk numbers, and I know Dr. Zorsch would really love me to go through a lot of that for him again.
Please.
But, but tonight we're going to change things. And it's not because we're trying to hide from any of our data. In fact, we already told you about our SPP score. We were second in the county. And the Pittsburgh Business Times ranks your high school the 11th best high school in Western Pennsylvania and #1 in Westmoreland County. So we've got nothing to hide. But we've got a lot more to show you than those numbers. And so tonight we're going to go completely off the chart, and we're going to talk about social studies. You will not find that anywhere in the SPP score. Absolutely nowhere. But I want you to see what's being done in your high school. And the best way to show that is to have some students show you some of the research they have done in conjunction with the program in their AP history class with the Latrobe Historical Society. And so we're going to begin first with, I'm going to introduce in a moment the teacher of that class, but I need to just tell you that we have two students here tonight who are so nervous and so worried. And it might be because I told them that a couple of times you made people cry.
You've never done that.
Only person.
True. I didn't tell them that. So now it's my pleasure to introduce the teacher of our advanced placement U.S. history and the teacher leader for social studies, Mr. Bill Snyder.
Hi everybody, I'm Bill Snyder. We have a big advantage here at Greater Latrobe in that we have a lot of passionate social studies teachers and we have a close relationship with our local historical societies, plural, because we work with a number of them. Last year, you may recall, we had done an AP US History student thing with our commemoration of the 150th anniversary of the Gettysburg Battle in 2013-2014 school year. This year is very similar. What happened is, it was brought to my attention that there was a book produced in 1946 it's a compilation of local veterans that were Greater Latrobe students and surrounding area students that had served. And this book is huge. And if you look at it, you can see there are 12 veterans per page, and there are 200 pages of veterans here. I asked Mr. Fremke to pass around a copy of the index of it because there are so many local names here that I am almost certain that you have some relatives in this book. What I had done after getting this booklet and talking with Mary Lou Townsend, we reproduced it. And we also, I created a lesson for all of my AP US History students, and they researched the people in there. I'll let them tell you about that end of it, but it was fascinating what they came up with. I selected 10 of the best. We presented at the last Historical Society meeting in LES's beautiful auditorium, and where a lot of these guys attended school. And it was very well supported by the community, and I think what you see tonight you'll like. What I put into this presentation here, in addition to what the students had done, is just a little overview of what we had used this assignment for. It gave the students an overview of the period of the history of World War II, to discover their local veterans' origins and the importance the Latrobe area had in the war effort, their high school career details of the actual people listed in the book, their service before and after, and if possible, their life after the war. So more importantly, it gave a newfound appreciation to the students themselves for those who had served so gallantly to defend our freedoms. And in addition, it was very interesting, from my perspective, for the students to see people that had actually walked the same path that they're going down. They had been educated at the Latrobe School. So it all started with an overview of the principal campaigns, because there were many different veterans in here who had common experiences serving in the Pacific. And I'm not going to bore you with a big history lesson here this evening, but they all had common features in that they served in major actions in both the Pacific and in Europe. So the European theater of war was, a lot of these local residents played a part in that. The students researched the actual combat that they had served in, their experience with the liberation of some of the camps and other things. And so then their perspective is a pretty unique one. And for that, I'll turn it over to Anna Hu and Sarah Watts. Anna?
I'm a current sophomore, and my name is Anna Hu. And because I don't have any relatives in the Latrobe area, or in Pennsylvania, or in the U.S., it was a little hard for me to pick someone. But I decided to randomly choose a veteran from the book that Mr. Snyder mentioned, and I came across Stephen Stern. Born in 1918, Stephen was born in Louisville. He was the son of Andrew and Mary Stern, and he had 2 sisters and a brother. As you can see in the picture, he was like any regular high school student, like motorcycles and had fun with that. He attended 2 years of high school at Latrobe Senior High School. At that time, compared to now, it wasn't that weird for people to only attend school for 2 years because it wasn't really, college wasn't the only option as today, but at that time there were more options like the WPA. The WPA was a program set up by FDR's New Deal. It employed millions of people between the ages of 18 and people in their mid-30s. As you can see in this map, the WPA projects were spread all over the U.S. And as you can see, there were a lot of projects in our area too. Stevens enlisted into the military on November 29, 1940 in Pittsburgh. He was 22 years old. While I was researching, I found that it was really interesting that he actually enlisted a year before the U.S. actually entered the war. And whenever I spoke with his son and daughter-in-law, they said that he was really interested in the cause of the war, and he was really motivated to enlist even though the U.S. didn't formally enter. He trained in Maryland and North Carolina. He joined the 70th Tank Battalion while he was training. The motto of the 70th Tank Battalion is Strike Swiftly, and the campaigns he participated in are listed. Here is a picture, a panorama of the 70th Tank Battalion. The 70th Tank Battalion actually had 4 companies, A, B, C, and D, and he was in Company B, and as you can see, he is circled in the picture. The interesting thing about the 70th Tank Battalion is that they actually had a mascot. His name is Joe Pepperwood, as you can see, he's a turtle. He was originally drawn with him standing on a broken swastika, but they thought that that probably wasn't a good idea, so they changed it to a globe. On Joe, Joe was depicted as a turtle because turtles were often used to describe the tanks because they're hard shells, and Joe has a little sash across his abdomen, and it says 70, which is 70 in French. He was created in 1944, right before D-Day. He was created then and not earlier in the war because whenever the 17th Battalion fought in Algeria and French Morocco, they were the only battalion with the M4 tanks. But in Europe, there were a lot more battalions with M4 tanks. So Joe was a good indication of which tanks were whose. And here's a picture of one of the 70th Battalion's tanks. And it's kind of hard to see, but Joe's actually painted on the side of the tank. Stephen departed to North Africa in 1942 in October. From his service, he received many decorations and citations. One of them is the European African Middle Eastern Service Medal, and that's for basically just serving in those areas. He received a Silver Star and 2 Bronze Stars for the number of campaigns he served in. He also received 2 Purple Heart Medals. Each one is for the wounds that he received. The first wound he received was when he was in Sicily, and he got burned and had a case of dermatitis. The second time was while he was in France, and there was a bullet that got into his tank and it ricocheted off the walls, and it hit him and many other soldiers in the tank. He also received the Good Conduct Medal, the Presidential Unit Citation, and the American Defense Service Medal. He also received the Bronze Arrowhead, which is for an amphibious battle, and that was for D-Day. While I was researching, I found something really interesting. I just searched his name into Google, and this popped up. It was actually an Instagram post, and I was actually surprised to find it. The story is that whenever Stephen was in France, some of his battalion members accidentally hit a young French boy, and the boy was riding into town with his younger brother, and he received many injuries and was taken to the hospital by the battalion. Afterwards, the boy's younger brother, he went back to retrieve the bikes and he found a wallet. The wallet turned out to be Stephen's wallet, and inside, as you can see, is a war card and an article. I stumbled upon these pictures because the French boy who found the wallet, he has kept it throughout all these years, and after he passed away, his granddaughter has this wallet now, and his granddaughter, after she found it, she wanted to return it to the family of the veteran, and I actually got to communicate with her, and although the card and the article is still in France, we're still communicating, trying to get it back to Stephen's family, who lives in Latrobe. After the war, he returned back to Latrobe, and as you can see, he has many relatives, and his 2 sons live currently in Latrobe, and I met up with them, and that's where I got most of my information. He also is employed in Westmoreland Plastics, who is a member of St. Vincent Church. He is also a member of the American Legion and the VFW Post in Latrobe. He also was the co-founder of the Louisville Volunteer Fire Department and the Louisville Sports Club. That's my presentation. Thank you.
He is not related to me. I randomly picked him off of the list that Mr. Steiner had in the book. I typed his name into Google, and it turned out that he was actually mentioned in a book that we have in our library. And upon reading just a little excerpt from that book, it was about 1 or 2 paragraphs, it occurred to me that Chester Maurice Lee did amazing things for our country and internationally. And at that point, I knew that I had to do my presentation on him. So we'll start at the beginning. He was born April 6, 1919 in New Derry. His parents were Joseph and Mary. They were first-generation Italian immigrants. They moved here from Torino, searching for the great American lifestyle and the great American dream. Specifically, Joseph worked as a coal miner, which is what brought him to this area. Later in life, he would actually start a store in Ligonier with his wife Mary. In this picture, there is a little Chester Lee in a bow tie who had the opportunity to go back to Italy as a young child to meet his grandparents. So in high school, he graduated in the class of 1936. He picked up the nickname Chet, which actually followed him through his entire life. Even when he was an old man, people still refer to him as Chet. He was extremely active. He was in the student council, concert band, he was on the football team, the wrestling team, and the National Honor Society. I got in contact with his daughter, Virginia, who lives in Washington, D.C., and she told me that he used to say that the best accomplishment of his high school career was he actually met his wife, Rose, at a freshman Valentine's Day dance. So here you can see some pictures of Chester. He's in the one in the tie, that's for Historical Society, and then he was also on the wrestling team. So because of Chester's accomplishments, he had garnered some attention from the local community. And he applied to Stanford and was actually able to get in, and a local doctor offered to pay full tuition for Chester to go to Stanford. Now, unfortunately, Chester had a lifelong dream to be a part of the Navy, and he was offered, a chance to go to the Naval Academy. So this was the first big crossroads of Chester's life. He didn't know what to choose, but eventually the doctor that offered the money said that he would build, opposed to Chester going to Stanford, he would help build a new house for Chester's parents on Tacoma Avenue. So Chester decided to go to the Naval Academy while the local doctor helped build a house for his parents. This house is still on the corner of Tacoma Avenue. It's a yellow brick house. You can see it any day. And so he did end up going to the Navy. And he was also sent to MIT for radar training. Now, at this point in time, radar was a completely new concept. It was, the forefront of science. No one knew what it was, so he's really taking a chance here. while going to MIT for radar training. Now this radar training would prove extremely valuable because after World War II, he ended up working on the Polaris missile, which was a huge achievement for military tactics, specifically with submarines. And Chester used to tell a story about when he worked at Cape Kennedy, which is now known as Cape Canaveral. It was very secretive, this mission, we're talking about cutting edge military technology. And he used to tell a story about how at night, there was a lot of like tourists and stuff at Cape Kennedy. They would cover all of their equipment in sheets and pull it out of this garage and move it across the entire Cape, hoping that no one would see it. So he was also sent to the Pacific Theater in 1944 to work as a gunnery officer on USS Drexler, and later he ended up in Vietnam becoming a captain for the Guy. Now, there was some intense things that happened to him while he was in the Navy, which I'll go into in a moment. But here you can see a picture of him celebrating peace after World War II, as well as him as captain of the Diet. So he is pretty. So, the sinking of the USS Drexler, this was probably the most noteworthy thing that happened to Chester while he was in the Navy. So as it says, on May 28, 1945, Chester was on board the USS Drexler off the coast of Ohio. Now the Drexler was just supposed to be escorting a larger ship, a larger destroyer called the Lowry, to another port of the Pacific. Unfortunately, 2 kamikaze planes were set to destroy the Lowry. So at 7 a.m., those 2 kamikaze planes went for the Lowry. The one was shot down, but unfortunately it actually crashed into the Drexler instead. So at this point they knew the Drexler was going to sink. The second kamikaze pilot, knowing that the mission was futile, decided to also crash into the Drexler. So within 49 seconds, the destroyer had sunk with all 210 men on board. Only about 40 of those men survived, only those on the top deck, including Chester. And because he was a gunnery officer, he was truly on the deck. And he used to tell a story that he was standing on the deck and he knew what was happening, and the one kamikaze plane flew so close, like so low to the ship, that he saw the red scarf the kamikaze had on in the whites of his eyes as he passed right before he crashed into the destroyer. So here you can see a picture of the USS Drexler on her maiden voyage, as well as an article that ran in the local newspaper. So this brings us to NASA. After Chester's time in the Navy, and like I said, he did become a captain in the Vietnam War. He was presented with another great crossroads of his life, where he was on his way to becoming an admiral, and that was his big goal in life, was to be an admiral. It was his inspiration. His best friend at the Naval Academy's father was an admiral who had died at Pearl Harbor. Like, it was truly his greatest goal in life. But at the time, he received a personal letter from President Kennedy himself asking him to join the NASA team because of his experience with radar training and the Polaris missile and MIT. And after a very long time of debating and pacing across the floor deciding what he was going to do, he decided that what more was a call to arms than a personal letter from JFK asking him to join NASA. So he was hired by NASA in 1965, and he worked on the early Apollo missions and was directly involved in the space race. Now, when I say he worked on the early Apollo missions, he served as assistant director for Apollo 1 through 11 before becoming mission director for Apollo 12 and on. One story he told from working on Apollo 11, and if you are familiar with that, that was the Apollo mission where in a routine testing operation, there was a little glitch, a malfunction, and the entire space shuttle's chambers burst into flames, and all of the men on board died. He was actually working at the time, as the assistant director, and he was working on communications, and Virginia, his daughter, told me that, she was alive during all of this, that he heard the sounds of the men screaming as the shuttle burst into flames, and it kind of changed who he was as a man for the rest of his life. And at that point, it became hard for Chester to want to continue on with NASA. After Apollo 1 and then the assassination of JFK, it really seemed like NASA wasn't going anywhere. But then Apollo 11 happened, which was the great mission that actually landed the men on the moon, and there was, support from the United States again and the populace regarding NASA. And at that time, he decided to really dig in, get really into NASA, and he became mission director for Apollo 12 and on. As mission director, specifically Apollo 13, if you're familiar with that mission, went horribly wrong. It was just a standard mission. They were just going to the moon. There was a horrible technical malfunction, and it seemed as if all of the men on board were going to die. Chester said they actually all ended up living through, the innovations in NASA at the time. It was a tight thing. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have seen the movie. He is depicted in that movie. You can see him talking to Eugene Kranz, who's the man who wears the white vest. He said, often to Virginia, that Apollo 13, though technically a failure, was his greatest experience at NASA because he brought those men back alive. He also worked on the Apollo Soyuz missions, which were collaboration between the Russian government and the United States government to just do some general space research, take some pictures of different planets, bring some moon rocks back. He went to Russia, he had to learn Russian, and I believe 8 months before being sent to Russia to work with Brezhnev and the other men there on these Soyuz missions. While he was there, he used to tell a story that he took his wife Rose with him. They were incredibly in love, according to Virginia. So he took his wife Rose, and they were in a Russian hotel room, and he started to develop a little bit of a cold. So he was coughing, and he told Rose about how bad his throat was hurting. And within 20-25 minutes, there was a knock on their hotel room door, and they opened it, and it was a Russian doctor. And at that moment, they knew that their rooms were being tapped. Everything they were saying was being listened to. After Apollo Soyuz, he actually just spent some time in Saudi Arabia working with the House of Saud and Prince Sultan. Prince Sultan specifically went on a NASA payload mission, which was very controversial because there were all these American astronauts who were vying for this position, and then this Saudi Arabian prince kind of stole it out from under them. But Chester Lee told them to suck it up, and because of that, the House of Saud loved him, and he actually wrote Prince Sultan for the rest of his life. They were great friends. There's lots of letters that Virginia has in her house that they just became really good friends after that. So basically, not only did he work in the United States, he was all over the world. He knew multiple languages. I mean, he was good friends with the Prince of Saudi Arabia. He really did some amazing things. So he retired in 1987 after becoming a well-respected figure in the industry, and not just in the industry, like I said, he was internationally known and well-liked. So here you can see a picture of him shaking hands with some men after the Apollo 11 mission, and then you can also see him working on a communications board. So some more pictures. You can see Chester in the middle of the one picture. Because he was mission director, he was responsible for briefing the entire team on what was going on. So he's standing in the middle there talking to his crew. And then you can also see a picture of him at the John F. Kennedy Space Center, just on a panel. So his death and legacy, he died on February 3rd, 2000 after a heart complication. He wasn't sick, he wasn't unhealthy, he was still working. He worked literally until the day he died. He was just going in for a regular thing, and in the middle of the night, he just kind of slipped away. No one was expecting it, but Virginia said that it was almost like peaceful because he was the kind of man who wanted to work, and he never had an experience being sick. So he survived by his 3 children. Virginia, that's the one I'm personally in contact with. We talk, we email, we call each other regularly now. David and Nancy. David actually went into the Navy and became an admiral in his father's, almost in his father's footsteps. And Nancy actually works at IBM. So here's a picture of Chester. You can see him with those thick black rimmed glasses shaking hands with Kennedy. They really were personal friends. Not only did Kennedy ask him to join NASA, but there's also letters and stuff that they exchanged. They had drinks. They were just 2 buddies. And Eugene Cernan, who was chairman for Johnson Engineering and one of the last men to walk on the moon, said that Chester, unlike most of the folks in Washington, he just took a lot of personal interest. He just wanted to get down and dirty with us and better understand the problems we were encountering. So he really did make a name for himself within the space industry. He ended up starting Space Hab, which turned into Astrotech. Like even after NASA, he never stopped. So Chester Maurice Lee did a lot of things. That's obvious. He was a great professional, an intellectual, an inspiration. But I asked Virginia Lee who he was above all of that. Like just fundamentally as a man, who Chester Maurice Lee was. And she told me that he was a patriot and a family man. And his love for his family was what fueled his patriotism. He wanted to make the United States a better place for his kids and his grandkids. And I think we can all agree that he did that. He was vital to the NASA missions. He was, active in World War II. Arguably, he did things that no one else could have done. I mean, he was a great intellect of his time, MIT, radar training. He was incredible. And I'm hoping that when all of you, walk outside of this building tonight, and maybe you take a second to look up at the night sky and see the stars, you'll know that Chester Maurice Lee really did bring the United States and bring you a little bit closer to them. And with all of that being said, Virginia Lee, we've been talking so much that she has offered to donate to high school some memorabilia from his life if we were willing to make some type of tribute to him in the high school hallways. She mentioned pieces of the Apollo shuttles that she has, medals, trophies, pins, letters, and original photographs, if we were willing. And I believe that considering what Chester Maurice Lee did, like locally, internationally, just nationally, that we should take the opportunity to make him as famous as he deserves to be, considering everything that he did. If it's as small as a plaque, that seems good enough to me. I just feel like he deserves some type of recognition. He was an amazing man, and I wish more people in our generation knew that. And I never really knew, like they say that the generation that Chester came from was the greatest generation. And I never really understood that until this project. And hearing Anna's project and all of the other students, like how much this generation truly did for the United States. And all of them deserve recognition. And the fact that we as a school have a chance to give Chester Maurice Lee some of that recognition, I feel like we just have to take the opportunity. So with that being said, that's Chester Maurice Lee, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did when we had the opportunity to see the presentation. With Anna, I'll tell you, it was amazing. When I went through school, you looked at encyclopedias. Encyclopedias were how you did research. You read books. Now they use technology, and in Anna's case, I just found it amazing that she was able to connect a family member of someone in France who had material that belonged to a family member of someone living here in Latrobe, and because of the conduit that she created, that family may get something back from one of their members. We talk about people from Latrobe who graduated, men like Arnold Palmer and Fred Rogers. I never heard of Chester Maurice Lee. And to hear that story, I thought was very interesting. These are the kinds of things that happen every day in so many different classrooms in the high school. As I mentioned in the beginning, you'll see none of that on your SPP score. It's not going to show up anywhere. But I think you should all be proud of what's being done in your school. And I also need to say this. This presentation tonight, I think, is a great reflection on our school, but I think it's a greater reflection on our district. I think you've got to look back to the elementary buildings, how they prepare kids, to our junior high, how they prepare kids, so that when they get to the high school, these are the kinds of things they could do. If it wasn't for what's being done in our elementary and what's being done in our junior high, this would not have been possible. Thank you.
I'd like to add just one thing to that. The fact that what you saw is a drop in the bucket. There are 200 pages of such stories in here. And our goal as a history department and AP classes that we're going to continue continue researching people out of this book in years to come as a way, an instructional tool. And I'm excited to see what we come up with in the future. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Second sheet.
Oh yeah, the second sheet, what we've done, since we were able to reproduce these, we're offering them for sale for just a little over printing costs. The proceeds will then go to the Social Studies Department to help with some of our projects and the Historical Society to help with their projects. If anyone would be interested, there's an order form. If you would like to pass them on, you're more than welcome to do that too. So, thank you again.
Thank you very much. Really did a great job. We did not make you cry tonight. You made us cry. Thank you very much. On your agenda for next week will be a tuition student for the 2015-2016 school year for your approval. We will also approve the Presley Ridge Special Education Services contract, and that's pretty much a yearly thing. We will also approve a memorandum of understanding between the GLSD and the GLEA for the ECAT Academy. That will be an agenda item also for next week. Also, we will approve the partial hospitalization services contract provided by Delphi Education Services, an agenda item also. And approve husband and youth survey distribution. We do this, I think, every year. And the curriculum committee meeting minutes from April 21st are an attachment. And the next curriculum committee meeting date will be Tuesday, August 11th at 5:30 p.m. You're planning ahead. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Haynes. Finance, Mrs. Miller. Thank you.
The treasurer's report and the bills and budgetary transfers will appear on next week's agenda as usual, and the rest of that long list of things will be dealt with by Mr. White.
Thank you, Mrs. Eller. I'll just quickly summarize those items. The appointment of the Act 511 tax collectors, those are done annually. Once again, Mark Burkhart will collect our per capita and our local services tax for Unity Township. The City of Latrobe will collect it for the City of Latrobe, and Michelle Wilson will collect those for Youngstown. Berkheimer will once again be the tax collector for our earned income taxes for the entire Westmoreland County. And the Westmoreland County Tax Collections Office will collect the real estate transfer tax. So that is the 511. The designations of depositories, we're required each year to have the board authorize those banking institutions that we bank with. They're listed there on your attachment. I'll just summarize very quickly. The Commonwealth of PA, Commercial Bank and Trust, First National Bank, Pennsylvania School District Liquid Asset Fund, First Commonwealth, PNC, Citizens, and Pliget. Our bank of record is FNB, First National Bank. We did a banking RFP several years ago. Their proposal offered us a great service with the best rates, although those aren't very great rates, as we all recognize. Interest rates are extremely low. The rates that we have with them right now are between 0.3 and 0.4, so the majority of our funds are with them. The next item is authorization to invest funds. Basically what the board is doing is authorizing the finance committee or their representative be made to invest funds in CDs and things of that nature that are all Act 72 collateralized, and they meet all the investment criteria. Unfortunately, at this time, there aren't any of those investment opportunities available to us. If we were to invest in a CD, you'd have to go out 2 or 3 years just to get a 0.6. It doesn't seem to make sense to lock your money in at that time, so we've chosen not to do that again. We've left the majority of it with FNB. We added tonight to approve the 2016 Commercial Real Estate Tax Assessment Appeals Program. We talked a bit about that in the executive session, so I think everybody's familiar with that program. It will be something new that we'll try for the upcoming school year, so we'll be asking you to act on that at next week's meeting. Reappoint the school district treasurer. Our treasurer is First National Bank because they're a bank of record, and Paul Puglia is representative from FNB that really acts as our treasurer, so he does a very nice job for us. And that brings us to the moment we've all been waiting for, and I know I'm joking, Judy, this is not the moment we've all been waiting for, but I would like to review the proposed final budget present the proposed final budget presentation with this group. If you recall, we adopted a resolution back in January stating that we would operate within the index. So basically what that means is by May 31st, we have to adopt the proposed final budget, and by June 30th, we have to adopt our final budget. So I want to approach this in a similar fashion to what we've done in previous years, and take a real quick look back at some of the previous year actuals, okay? Then take a snapshot of what we anticipate our 15-16 expenditures being, and then wrap up with maybe a 3-year lookout as far as expenditures that we know are coming down the road. And once I've done all that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Tepper and Mr. Premka to kind of highlight. You'll see that we've done a very good job over the years of controlling our costs, but that has not held back the growth and the development of our programs. And Mike and George will talk that out a little bit more at the very end of this presentation. So, if I could start here. In 2009-10, our actual expenditures less PSER's retirement, these are audited numbers, okay, so you can pour audited financial statements and see these figures. Our actual expenditures less PSER's retirement is $47,196,000, okay? Now you won't see this on my slides, but just maybe make a mental note of this or write this down somewhere because I want to come back to this later. I think it's pretty impactful. Above and beyond that, we had expenditures for PSER's retirement, okay? And those expenditures were an additional $1 million, and they made up 2% of our operating expenditures. So just keep in mind that 2%, okay? There will be a testimony, so write this down. Okay, so in the 2010-11 school year, our actual expenditures less PSER's retirement were $46,950,000. That was a $246,000 decrease, okay? PSER's made up, now the reason for the decrease in that year, because I anticipated some questions, so I'll just try and answer those for you to save you some time. We offered an early retirement incentive. We had some of our faculty and staff retire. We didn't replace them all, but we hired some newer ones at a lesser rate that helps to control costs. And we did that frequently in like 2007, 8, 8, 9, 9, 10, so you'll see. I'm going to come back to that point a little bit later.
And each building was tightening their purse strings.
And each building was tightening their purse strings. And you'll see in the next slide how impactful that was. But so keep in mind now, PSER's was $1.2 million, so it went up about $200,000 from the previous year, and now it makes up about 3% of our operating costs. In 2011-12, the actual expenditures less PSER's retirement were $45,478,000. That was a $1.5 million decrease, over a 3% decrease, okay? If you recall, in 2011-12, that's when we had the significant cuts to state and federal funding. So we had to make some adjustments to staffing, to benefits that we offered to our groups. We made significant cutbacks at the building levels, the principals did, and all department heads did with supplies and equipment and textbooks. And we did some really neat things. And I just wanted to note, though, we're going to come back to this at the end, because even with these significant cuts we've made, we've had made some significant accomplishments too. Okay, so more to come on that. So that year, in 2011-12, the PSER's costs, which again would be in addition to that $45.5 million, were $1.8 million, or 4% of the budget. It was a $623,000 increase over the prior year. And just to remind you that one mill is $330,000, $338,000 roughly. So when you experience an increase for that one specific budget line, it makes it very, very tough to develop budgets and to continue to move the school district forward. But I think, as you'll see, we did that. In 2012-13, less PSER's retirement, $46,000 was our actual expenditures, and it was a $584,000 increase. Anytime you see an increase, the majority of that is a result of salaries or benefits, just contractual obligations that the district has. And that occurs frequently, but in some years we have other areas that we're able to control costs or reduce costs. You'll hear me talk about OPEB costs, or technology, or special education, some things that we've done differently over time that help to so those costs don't go up even more significant than that 584. Now the PSERS portion of that in the 2012-13 school year was $2.7 million. Now it's 5% of our operating costs, and it increased by a little less than $900,000 over the prior. 13-14, actual expenditures less PSERS were a little under $47 million. It was an $879,000 increase. Again, the majority of that is salary and benefits, contractual in nature, okay? So that year, PSERS jumped up to $3.6 million. So you would add $3.6 million to that $46.9 million to get what our actual expenditures were. Now, in that year, it made up 7% of our operating budget, and it increased by almost $1 million over the prior year. Okay? So now we're in our 2014-15 budgeted year. So this is what we're currently operating under. The board approved the budget, less PSERS retirement, and $46.5 million. It was about a 1% increase, $483,000. Again, majority of that goes to our salary and benefits.
Decrease.
I'm sorry, decrease. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the year that we realized the savings in our OPEB costs. And everything, that stands for other post-employment benefits. When you offer those early retirement incentives, sometimes individuals have health care. Well, as they fall off those costs, you truly see those costs. And we had some groups that fell off in the 14-15 school year that helped us offset some of our other costs and actually operate at a decrease. And again, less than PSERS retirement. Now, PSERS retirement in that specific year made up $4.8 million. So you would add 4.8 to that amount, or 9% of our operating budget, and it increased by $1.1 million above and beyond the prior year. So here's where we're at for 15-16. Less PSERS retirement, we're looking at a proposed final budget of around $47.5 million. It's about $1 million increase, 2.23%. I will come back to this $1 million and break it down for you so you know exactly what that consists of in a later slide. But now, PSERS is an additional $6 million, or 11% of our budget. Okay, it increased by $1.2 million. So you're going to see a slide a little bit later where I do a bar chart where you're really going to see. So we went from 2% of our operating costs to now 11%. So it's definitely impacting our school district. It's impacting all school districts throughout the state of Pennsylvania. So here's a really neat thing, though, that brings us back, and I think that the school board, the school district in general, should be applauded for this, because this slide, I think, sums it up. In 2009-10, our actual expenditures less PSERS retirement was $47.2 million. In 2015-16, it's $47.5 million. So it's increased only by $300,000, or 0.64% increase throughout a 6-year period. So, that's pretty significant. That shows that as a school, I think we've operated and thought outside the box and made some adjustments to offset those retirement costs that have caused our other part of our budget to balloon up. Okay? So PSERS retirement, I keep stating that. What does that mean? PSERS stands for the Public School Employees Retirement System. Now, a lot of times that gets tied to teachers. It's all public school employees. It's the administration, it's the custodial maintenance staff, it's the food service. Any public school employee is required by law, if you work a certain number of hours or days, to participate, which means you're required to contribute, which means the employer is required to contribute on your behalf as well, okay? So, PSERS funding method is a state law. It became law in July of 1917 and effective in January of 1919. There are 3 years, 1983, 2001, and 2011, when the funding method was amended. In 1983, what they did is they increased the employee contribution amount by 1%, okay, which it caused the employee to put more into the program. In 2001, this is one I think people look back at and regret a little bit. What they did here is they adjusted the multiplier from 2 to 2.5%. They changed the vesting requirements from 10 years to 5 years. So basically what they did is they increased the benefit to any future retiree. Well, what that did is that increased long-term liability and long-term costs. So in 2011, they tried to make an adjustment to help to correct some of that, and they introduced 2 new classes. And basically anybody hired after July 1, 2011, they have different retirement obligations that they have to meet to reach a certain level of benefit. But more importantly, they contribute more to the retirement. There's a sliding scale that's reviewed and adjusted every 3 years. So A lot of times you'll hear about, hey, what can we do differently with the retirement system? And those are some of the things that's being kicked around, moving forward in a way to fix this a little bit. But finally, the piece that we wanted to note, no local control. The retirement system is not subject to collective bargaining. The state government dictates PSER's contributions and benefits levels. It's not decided here at the local level. So if you're wondering why in the previous slides I removed it all out, I was trying to show you the areas that you as a school board and us as a school district have control over, and I believe are responsible for. Okay, PSER's retirement impact. In 05-06, the employer contribution rate was 4.69%. The net employer cost of the district was about $550,000. And I say net because the state reimburses the district through a subsidy about 50% of that. And Mrs. Elder always points out to me that that money that the state reimburses us also comes from taxpayer dollars. So, but from a school district standpoint, I just need to note that we do get state subsidy for that. 2014-15, the current year, it's at 21.4%. The net employer cost is $2.4 million. What is the rates going to next year is 25.84%, so a little under $3 million. So you can do the math. It's grown from 05-06 by $2.4 million, which equates to about 7 mils. So when you translate it that way, it's been very impactful to our taxpayers, as far as the real estate goes. I wanted to show you that it does cap out in 22-23 at 32%. It'll be about $4.5 million net cost to the district. Okay?
And then it doesn't go down.
It does not go down, unfortunately. It does not spike and then drop. It stays there for a long period of time. I think it starts to decline in 2035. But when I say decline, I mean gradual. It's not steep.
It's not going to drop the same way it grew.
Right.
So here's the chart. So if you look at PSER's retirement impact, the bars in the black show the district's operating costs in some budgeted and projected numbers. You can see the spike. The bars in the orange are numbers when you move the PSER portion of it. So you can see that the portion that the school board and the school district has had control over has remained relatively level when you compare it to the spike in the black bulge. So summary projected expenditure changes. So we're looking next year at roughly $2.2 million in projected operating cost increase. Retirement makes up about $1.1 million of that, or 53% of that increase. So the combination of all the other areas reflected, which I noted in that previous slide, is about $1 million. Salaries make up $644,000 of that. The CTC's tuition rate, the school resource officer, athletics, we've added 4 new programs, makes up about $183,000. Transportation, 2 years ago, we went out for an RFP for transportation. We were able to negotiate a 5% decrease to our transportation cost. It was frozen in the second year. In the third year is when it's jumping up by 3%. We knew that was coming, but I wanted to note that. Also, we had to add 4 special education bands in the past year. Those, unfortunately, it's out of our control sometimes when those students get placements. We're required to provide that transportation, so that's also included in that total. Insurance, which include medical, dental, and vision, make up the $98,000. That miscellaneous is just to get it reconciled down to that $1,037,000 in case you're doing the math. Summary of projected revenues. Local revenues, we anticipate growth of $757,000. It's a really good thing for the Greater Latrobe School District, and I'll touch on that in the next slide. Why? State, we're looking at a projected increase of $1,036,000. The majority of that is PSER's. PSER's makes up about, I think, $580,000 of that, so over half. Federal, $28,000, not a very significant portion of our revenue. And then there's the other category, which we no longer have. So total change of about $1.8 million. So again, if you're doing the math, if we have projected increases of around 2.2 and expenditures at about 1.8 in additional revenue, we're looking at a shortfall of less than $400,000, which I believe is manageable. Okay. Local revenue projections. So this is what I wanted to know. Real estate tax collections. The assessed value of our properties continue to grow at a gradual, consistent level. So the assessed value alone for our school districts have increased by $3.3 million. That $3.3 million naturally generates an additional $246,000 in revenue based on our existing millage rate. So that's We're fortunate. Not every school district that surrounds us is experiencing that growth. Some are experiencing more, but there are some that aren't experiencing it, so we are fortunate. Earned income tax collection. We're finally bumping up our EIT budget amount to $3.6 million. A few years back, Act 32 came into place, which required all employers to withhold EIT tax from all of their employees. We saw a significant increase in the first year. We were very conservative with that. We thought maybe it was a spike here. Saw it again in the second year, and we're seeing it this year, so we're bumping that up. This will not be, don't anticipate it to go up by $300,000 next year. Once you hit the 3.6, it'll stay about around that 3.6. It just made up the gap that of the additional collections that were generated that were being missed or slipping through the cracks before Act 32 came in place. So, delinquent real estate tax, we're looking at an increase of about 150. I'm adjusting that based on trends. So we get to state allocation assumptions. Okay, Governor Wolf delivered his budget proposal in March, which I've shared with many of you. If you look, the state's proposed budget increase in those 4 categories that are listed there, basic ed, charter, PA accountability, and special education, account for $939,000. So in those 4 categories, the proposed total budget amounts that they would provide to us would be $13,223,000. What we're budgeting for in our proposed final budget at this time, we're proposing to include $12,753,000, which is roughly $470,000 of the increase, which is exactly 50%. So we're proposing only to include 50% of what Governor Wolf is proposing. The rationale for that is a lot of what he's proposed has been tied to the modernization of the LCB, as well as adjusting the state and sales tax. We're not sure that's going to happen. We will not know by June 30th. We might not find out until late summer or early fall. So we are being conservative with that at this particular time. Okay? The review of the state funding, the black bars include the PSERS subsidy, the 50% reimbursement. The orange do not include that. So when you look at that chart, you can see our funding minus PSERS has been relatively level since the 11-12 school year. Budgetary amendments. These are things when you're looking out for we need to continue to pay attention to. State funding, federal funding. We're not certain what level of funding we will receive and what level of funding we will continue to receive. Special education, you're never sure what that population is going to look like. 1 or 2 students could impact you significantly because of cost, not just to educate them, but also like transport, etc. So student enrollment is, we're assuming flat. Our enrollment has been relatively flat. So, but that is still an unknown at this time. Future budgetary concerns. The PSERS employer rate increases. We know that those are continuing to come. Future capital projects. We've been successful in setting aside money for our 5-year rolling capital plan, but we also know we have some possible larger renovations or projects on the horizon that we need to continue to think about. So that's something we can't forget about. State budget allocation. Again, just the lack of certainty about what level of state and federal funding we will receive. The Act 1 index, if something were to happen and we needed to generate some additional income, under Act 1 you can no longer just bump up the millage rate. You need to continue to plan long term and sort of, you have to look out 5 to 10 years. And you have to plan for that when you're, I have to think 5 years into the future when I'm planning this budget right now because of that, which is not a bad thing, it's a good thing. It's what every school district should be doing. Early retirement incentives, I wanted to come back to this. We offered many early retirement incentives, and several years ago, we have a relatively young staff, faculty and staff. If we were to offer an early retirement incentive at this time, there's only probably a handful of individuals that would qualify or take advantage of it. So it's not like you can pull that out of your back pocket to try and balance the budget and so on. Like I said, we have a relatively young staff. Special education, again, you never know what that special education, you never know what your special education enrollment is going to be. Transportation, again, that sort of ties to special education. So, looking ahead, PSERS employment rate increases. If you go and look at a 3-year projected budgetary impact, 16-17, this is net, again, after the 50% reimbursement from the state. We know in 16-17, we anticipate an increase in that specific line item of about $542,000, which equates to 1.61 million. 17-18, an increase of about $217,000 equals 0.64. 18-19, 230 or 29,000.68. Those are things we have to keep in mind when we're developing our budgets for future years. We know with a decent certainty that those rates will continue to increase. So keep them on the radar. So our recommendation is approve a proposed final budget in the amount of $53,412,000. The next steps would be continue to evaluate our operating expenditures and continue to review potential revenue funding sources. Also attached to your computers there, to the agenda, I should say, is a more detailed breakdown of our budget. There's a summary sheet that goes into greater detail as well as a detailed sheet. Please review it at your leisure. I've shared it with the Finance Committee, but if anybody else has any questions between now and June, don't hesitate to corner me at any time. I'll be happy to talk about it. So next I'll turn it over to Mike in Georgia to talk a little bit about some district accomplishments.
I'm sitting there thinking, am I going to have to talk as fast as Dan Watson to get through this presentation?
Let's try to speed it up. Clearly Georgia's nervous just like the students.
Yeah. As Dan stated, we are very happy to share with you what you have seen a lot of these district accomplishments, given the constraints of which we have had to operate here the past several years with the cuts in state funding, etc. I know you heard Mr. LaCasio talk a little bit about the business times tonight and the ranking of the high school, but you can also see where the entire school district ranked out of 103 schools in southwestern PA and 56 out of 493 schools in the state of Pennsylvania. Along with that, the SPP score, you saw this at the beginning of the year. SPP score has replaced the AYP, and every building performed at least at 81.3 or above on a 100-point scale out of all schools. In all schools, I should say. We continue, and we have, we're happy to say, proud to say, we have increased technology use through interactive whiteboards in every classroom, and you saw the demonstration this past year of the 2 3D printers, one at the junior high school as well as the senior high school. Along with that, teachers have all received professional development in the utilization of the technology. Dual enrollment opportunities for students increased with additional partnerships this year, or I should say beginning with the next school year. We're happy to say that Penn College as well as Westmoreland County Community College, we will be offering several courses through WCCC for dual enrollment as well as child development through Penn Technical College. And we discussed the fact of the support that we had added for teacher on assignment to support special education services. Laurie Golobish, who is a kindergarten teacher, continued to assist in this area.
Last year at this time, remember, we investigated and made a recommendation to the board to purchase and implement a K-8 science program, a comprehensive science program called Science Fusion. Not only were we able to implement that curriculum, but we were able to provide implementation professional development to our teachers K-8 to help them with the program. With the help of our teacher leaders and our building principals, we've continued and will complete curriculum writing and curriculum mapping of all of our courses throughout the GLSD and curriculum. At the elementary level, we rewrote and created theme and weekly tests and benchmark assessments so that they were aligned to the PA core. Provided ongoing professional development for Go Math. Remember a few years ago we purchased a math curriculum K-6. Our teachers asked for additional professional development, and we've provided that in the summer. You're familiar with the School Resource Officer Program. Again, another important program that was implemented at GLSD. And in the past, you remember several years ago, we implemented the Autistic Support Classroom at Bagley Elementary. The success of that program led to the junior high school classroom being open. The success of that program allowed us to open the senior high school autistic support classroom. So we were able to open that room, furnish that room, and put a qualified teacher in that room, which again, you got to remember that's money coming into the school district because we do have students from outside GLSD coming into that program. Additionally, to provide some support to our elementary schools, we were able to kind of reshape. We had an in-school suspension supervisor at the elementary schools, and we reworked that and created a different position called behavioral support, which provides a higher level of service, qualified service to our elementary schools to help deal with some of the, what's that?
Behavior support.
Yeah, the behavior support plans that are with our elementary students.
Each year, we apply for applications to receive AmeriCorps tutors. We received an increase in the number of tutors this past school year, and when you weigh out the cost versus hiring an additional teaching assistant, it is half of the price, and we're able to utilize those services through the tutors to assist our students as well. And we continue to have our teaching assistants at both junior and senior high schools. Many elective courses have been offered to our 9th grade students, some of them being an intro to business class, as well as broadcast and production, foundations of broadcast and production, and several art electives. And we continue to look at that and have our students in the 9th grade have the opportunity to partake in those activities and classes. We're aware of the athletic and wellness complex for physical education and athletic teams, but I don't know if you've been up to the high school throughout the day these past few weeks where the weather has just been awesome. The use that the facility receives through our physical education department and our students, 7th through 12th grade, is just phenomenal. It is packed all the time. So if you're out and about during the school day, stop on up and you can see what's going on and the fact that all of our students are benefiting from that facility. The junior high corridor and the junior high school with the connecting hallway, the renovation to continue to provide that continuation of student purchased artwork. And I think the main key is that we continue to seek grant opportunities to sustain these initiatives. And we continue to work with the Greater Latrobe Partners in Education to support district initiatives, as well as applying for other grants wherever and whenever possible to help sustain and continue the initiatives here at Greater Latrobe. So with that being said, this is just this school year we focused.
There's one accomplishment that's not listed, though, that I think that needs to be noted.
Yes.
You don't know where I'm going with this,
Oh,
trust me.
I was thinking this one, but.
No.
That's next school year. That's why this is just 14-15 school year. Next school year, we receive the Project Lead the Way grants that will be implemented.
Robin was able to purchase Dan 2 new computer monitors in his office. If you've been in there, he has, it looks like he flies the station. He now has 3 monitors to manage all this. He has more monitors than Chester Maurice Lee had. I have no comment.
Are there any questions about any of the accomplishments or initiatives that we're working to sustain?
Or any questions about the budget in general at this point in time?
I just said I'm glad I'm not Dan Watson's wife with the purse strings. Monitoring my spending.
Need a type 3 ballistic gun?
And if I could, the next item on the agenda is Jillian Malloy from Con coming up for she's going to present the breakfast and lunch pricing recommendations for the 2015-16 school year. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Good evening. As part of the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act, every year we have to assess our breakfast and lunch pricing. Using the calculator, the same equation that we've used for the past 6 years, the equity in school lunch pricing. For the 15-16 school year, I'm happy to report there is no price increase necessary. So my recommendation to the board is to maintain our current school lunch prices at $2.20 for the elementary school, $2.50 for the secondary schools, and maintain our district breakfast price at $1.20. Any questions? Yeah. It's very exciting to maintain this pricing.
Thanks, Jill.
In March, I received a letter from the School Nutrition Association of Pennsylvania, and I would just read the first sentence that says, "It gives me great pleasure to inform you that one of your district employees has been selected as the 2015 School Nutrition Association of Pennsylvania's Food Service Director of the Year." And since we only have one food service director, I did not need to read it further. I knew that it was Jillian Malloy. So we would like to recognize, and she will be recognized this summer at a conference in Harrisburg for this honor, but she was chosen for this honor for several things, and I will simply read what some of those items are so that we all know, and I think when we look at this list, we would all recognize that these are the things that Jillian does do and does do very well. An interest in continuing education to better serve the needs of the child nutrition programs here at Greater Latrobe. Involvement of teamwork with staff, teachers, administrators, students, and the community. Better serving customers' needs in nutrition education. And those food sampling just put you over the edge there, Jillian. And networking with professionals to gain ideas to better serve the needs of the child nutrition programs. So we are very proud, Jillian, of you, and we appreciate your being here at Greater Latrobe. We have a little certificate for you. Nothing of major significance, but we certainly wanted to recognize your accomplishments and thank you for your work here at Greater Latrobe. Thank you very much. And I'm worried she has the camera out. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. You come to tell us there's no increase, and we tell you that you're the food service director of the year in Pennsylvania. That's a good thing. Thank you, Julie.
And you will all notice that the budget it will be on next week's agenda for the final operating budget approval. And the next finance committee meeting will happen on Wednesday, June 3rd at 10 at the admin building. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Elder. For the legislative report, the agenda item is to approve the resolution urging legislative action on school employee pensions.
What should we do about that? Should we make it available to the newspaper? I think they've been quoting the other school districts that have approved it. Maybe they've seen it because we didn't write it.
Certainly should have. No problem.
Property and supplies, Mrs. Kessler?
Yes, I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Millsap.
Thank you, Heidi.
You're welcome.
Next week we'll be asking you to vote on the junior high paving project. This is part of our rolling capital project that Dan mentioned earlier that we work on every year and update. The low bid was from El Grande Industries in Monessen, PA. The total cost of the project will be $93,825. Anybody have any questions? Also, at part of the committee meeting last week, I shared with the committee about a new maintenance software program that I purchased, or the district purchased, that we are using for work order tracking. The work order tracking system provides us a way to have requests, approvals, work assignments, and then we can track the work orders that goes to our system. This is quite a leap for the maintenance department and a change of how we operate. I will say I'm very pleased with how it's going so far as the information I have and the acceptance of my staff. And it's been positive on my end to this point, but we are very early in, and there's many more hurdles to jump, I'm sure. Thank you very much.
Our next Providence Select Committee meeting is June 4th, 2:30 at some point.
Mrs. Kozar. Student activities and recreation. I'd like to point out our spring recognition night will be Wednesday, May 27th at the Senior High Auditorium, and our next athletic committee meeting is yet to be determined. Dr. Zork, Community Relations.
I have no report, but just a comment about these kids doing this project on World War II. What a community relations blessing that is. I mean, how better to get your kids involved in the community, to see what the history of the community is, actually get involved with these families and do this research and stuff. I mean, how better to get a school in the minds of the community as well, too, to see kids taking an interest in their family and doing a project. Just look at the interaction between these kids and these families. What kind of goodwill that brings to the school, and also goodwill it brings to the families, and just a wonderful thing for students to see. I mean, this is fantastic. I didn't know this guy lived in Latrobe. Now I know, I'll never forget that. I mean, these kids will never forget that. And presenting in the school, how many kids did that impact in the school to see what these people did in their lifetime that are actually from our community? You know, I went to Rick.
Students doing all the reports on all of
I mean, he just said this is the tip of the iceberg of how many kids are actually involved. And kudos to that teacher for doing this kind of stuff. That's fantastic. Take this PA core stuff and shove it and do this kind of stuff. I mean, what more the kids need to learn? What these kids did tonight. I mean, they presented themselves so well. The public speaking was fantastic. They learned a tremendous amount of information about their school, about their community, and about how to present to a bunch of stone-faced tired people. And all of a sudden became very interested and very alert.
This let me know what the greatest generation even meant. So really, I think, changed perspective on these students when they can look back and go, oh, they were high school students. They weren't always 90-year-olds, you know? So I think
just seeing that tonight made me so proud to be part of this thing. I mean, it's just a fantastic thing. I'm so proud of those kids for that, and I'm proud of that teacher for that too. That was just fantastic. Kudos to all those people. That was just tremendous, tremendous.
Mrs. Baines, Westmoreland Intermediate Unit. The summary of the meeting minutes from April 28th is attached, and the next WIU committee meeting is Tuesday, May the 26th at 7:30 at the WIU board.
Thank you. Mrs. Kozar, EWCTC.
Yes. Excuse me. Next week we'll have an agenda item to approve the EWCTC's Joint Area Board HVAC renovation project. We're putting new air handlers, all kinds of fancy stuff, boilers, all kinds of fancy new stuff over the EWCTC because it's about 60 years old. Is that 50, 60? It's well beyond. It's well beyond its use by date. Let's just put it that way. And the big item, from my point of view, is the senior recognition night. It's Tuesday, May 26th. You're all invited. It's a lovely evening. All of the kids come across the stage, so you get to see all of them up close and personal. And you're all welcome to attend. And our minutes from our last meeting on April 22nd are an attachment, and our next meeting is May 22nd.
Just one note, Ned and I, pardon the interruption, the item that we're asking the board to vote on next week about the HVAC renovation project is needed because of the dates of the meetings and the approval of the bids that will be coming into the EWCTC. So the agenda item, and you can open the attachment, but basically what it's doing is it's giving permission to the JOC and the appropriate administrative staff at the JOC to make the recommendation and approve, and you are giving them the power to do that. You are giving them the trust to do that.
What you had done in the initial resolution that was passed, and by you, I mean not only this board, but Ligonier and then the dairy board also has to vote on it. So it's the entire joint area board. You had given them approval to hire an engineer, to engage in the planning, to write the specs, get the bids ready to go out, and then they were to come back to you for final approval of the project. All the other contingencies have been completed, and that's what the resolution says. Then, in order to speed things up, rather than you having to come back and do a meeting in June or July or some type of special meeting, what we've done here is you are delegating to the JFC the ability to move forward with the project, including choosing the lowest responsible bidder required by law. That will actually save a month and a half or so on this project. And if you recall, we want to get the bulk of the project completed through the summer when the students are there. I would add this is a joint area board vote, and if at all possible, for you to be here next week and cast this vote, we need a majority of 27 votes. It's important that this district provide as many of its complement votes as possible for those who do favor it.
That was pretty eloquent, man.
That
was pretty eloquent.
He was skating very well.
Yeah, he was skating.
He was skating. He was doing his best tap dances.
My other districts.
I know. So to continue, our next EWCTC committee meeting will be on May 27th, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Kozar. Board policy, Mrs. Alder.
No report this evening.
Mr. Music is not here. And
No, he is here.
I snuck in.
I told her my bifocal contacts are a little blurry, so Mr. Music, transportation.
I have no report.
Mr. Palmer, technology.
No report this evening, Dr. Hall.
Superintendent's recommendation.
I would ask the board for next week to approve an agenda item to create the supervisor of student support services K-12, and it was actually mentioned in the accomplishments this evening. I'd also ask the board to approve employee benefit and pay plans that Mr. Watson has reviewed with the board for the secretarial and clerical personnel, personal assistants, classroom assistants, behavioral support, suspension supervisor, and health room assistants. That would be effective July 1st this year for 2 years. We will also ask the board to approve resignations of Richard Zavatsky as the wrestling assistant coach, Chad Smelling as the wrestling first assistant coach, and Rachel Obsenica as the language arts teacher. Ms. Obsenica's husband has received a position in another state, and unfortunately she is leaving us to move with her family. Tonight I'd ask the board to move on resolution number 223, which is to approve the professional personnel substitute teacher of Ann Cavalier. Ann will be attending our 6th grade camp program, which begins next Wednesday, I believe Monday.
No.
Tomorrow. Okay, I'm totally
And it's not raining.
There must be, yes, it is not raining. The other candidate that we're asking to approve as a substitute is Ryan Hayden, as substitute for the Greater Latrobe School District. So I ask the board to move on that resolution this evening. So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The vote passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And next week, there will be an item to approve an additional student summer worker, Connor Koch. I'm not sure I'm saying that correctly. Hopefully I am. As well as the support personnel appointment supplemental for basketball coaches as well as cheerleading. Under other business, there are many events going on in the school district this month. All of the dates are listed there. Most notably is baccalaureate at the bottom, Monday, June 1st, at the Latrobe Presbyterian Church, as you know, that rotates amongst the churches in the city of Latrobe, as well as commencement exercises will be Tuesday, June 2nd at 7 p.m. And I like the positive note of Rossi Field. So we will hopefully see it there if the weather permits. And the board meeting dates, our next meeting will be next Tuesday, May 19th, and then our June meetings of June 9th and June 16th. Thank you very much. You can hear it.